GizmoSapiens show 283. We're going to dub this one RAM-aggedon. I'm Chris, and with me today is...
I am Matt.
And, you know, RAM prices have not just been going up, and SSD prices. They've actually gone back and traveled in time. It's like an episode of Star Trek, back to 2007. We're going to talk about RAM-aggedon. We're going to break down the memory crisis, strangling PC pricing, and actually it's more than just PC pricing. Why Jensen Huang, my buddy, Jensen, says it isn't anytime soon, and how Intel, Qualcomm, and Silicon Motion are scrambling to build around the shortage instead of waiting it out. We're going to also head a little bit into the AI chip wars as opposed to the regular chip wars, and see how they can challenge Nvidia. So let's talk about the price crisis. So I think, what people don't realize, because they haven't really seen it yet, because most major tech purchases happen around the holidays. I think the first group of people who realized that prices had gone up are probably the kids going back to college, the freshmen coming in, or somebody who needs a new laptop because their laptop is aged. Um, they're seeing a price increase, or they might not have. I have a feeling some people might not have noticed what they. I've known a lot of people who were like, they'll buy a $600 laptop when they replace their stuff, and it doesn't matter what's in that laptop. What matters is the cost of the laptop. So if it's if your $600 laptop that you got last time got you, a decent processor and a decent amount of RAM, um, they won't notice until they go to use the new $600 laptop, when they realize that, oh, I'm getting a low end processor and I'm getting, half the RAM I got last time. And this is all Keynesian economics. I think you will hear that as a common theme I will say over and over again. There is a supply and demand problem. And I won't say that outside influences have not exacerbated this problem. Like, there are more than 3 major chip makers in the world now. There's at least 5. But the 2 Chinese ones we can't use here in the United States. So, um, products sold in the United States are still beholden to the 3 major makers. And it is more profitable for them to make memory for AI accelerators than it is to make consumer RAM. And so, um, Daniel Lemure, who is a professor, and I forget at what university in Canada, uh, he did a study and related it to Stanford's DAM project data, which shows current DDR5 pricing at $13.28 to $11.41 a gigabyte, matching the 2008 DDR2 pricing. And when you adjust for inflation, to dates line up with 2011 DDR3 pricing. Two decades of exponential price declines were wiped out in the first 6 months of this year. Which means, again, we've time traveled back from a pricing perspective back to 2007, when you bought a computer with as little memory in it as you could handle, and then you hope to God you could save up enough money to buy an upgrade later. One of the problems, though, is that a lot of these machines are not upgradable anymore, and it's not just an Apple issue. It's an everybody issue. It is much cheaper to manufacture these machines, particularly if you want thinner, lighter, and more power efficient, by integrating the RAM onto the motherboards, not not doing the old way, or even the new way of removable RAM, which is LP cam RAM, um, which is just starting to hit the market. I actually have a laptop that I pre-ordered months ago, so I'm still getting the price. But even when I pre-ordered it, the RAM prices had started going up, but it uses LP cam memory. So I'm stuck with the 16 gig of RAM in that memory, or in that laptop, when I get it shipped. But even the whole issue with price and availability of scarcity of parts, I was supposed to get that machine in July, and it's not supposed to ship now until September. I have a feeling I won't see it until October or November. Um, you know, uh, but the thing is what most people are thinking is that this is only affecting PCs. I don't use a PC, but it's affecting everything that uses DRAM memory. So microcontrollers used in uh, programmable logic controllers for manufacturing, microcontrollers used in manufacturing and in home automation devices, and computers for your car. Uh, it's driving prices up everywhere. And anything that has something that requires DRAM memory, which is almost everything in that we use today, including your refrigerator and your stove, and you know it's driving that cost up.
Well, and this goes back to I think, and maybe you will disagree, but and I don't think you will, but we have to start manufacturing this stuff here.
Yes, and we do. The funny thing is Micron is an American company. SK Hynix and Samsung are South Korean, and a most favored trading nation trading partner. But we actually manufacture Micron memory here in the good old United States. Um, and it sounds like we used to, back in the day, back in the 80s, when PCs started to explode, whether it was Apple or the nascent Windows business and all this in the late 80s and through the 90s, we had, worldwide, we had probably 40 or 50 just RAM manufacturers, memory manufacturers who made RAM. But over the years, just like any market where there is a ton of companies, you get consolidation. And, for the most part, we have consolidated down to SK Hynix, Samsung, and Micron. Intel used to be a producer of DRAM products, and they left that market back in the 90s. Now there's talk that they're going to re-enter that market again because, again, if they re-entered, it's likely profitable for them.
Granted, this is not what they do. I mean, they don't do RAM, they do processors. I lost track of it. Did that Intel facility that was supposed to be built around Columbus finally die?
No, I believe that construction has resumed on that. That's a good answer, a good question. The funny thing is a processing fab for processors could easily be converted to a processing fab for DRAM. But more than likely, because that's a new fab, that would be a new process for Intel that they were building in Columbus. That would go to making new processors, and they would take one of their older fabs, because DRAM doesn't have to be manufactured on the latest process, and they would convert that to making DRAM. And that could be something that could be done fairly quickly, as opposed to building a new fab specifically for DRAM. Um, but we have this wonderful thing. They call it the internet, I believe,
What?
where we can
What?
look information up, the information superhighway. And we carry these little pocket computers and even more powerful laptop computers around, and we can look this stuff up.
I am shocked and appalled to learn of this.
So, on the website Construction Review, how is Intel's 20 billion Ohio one chip plant on track or derailed? And this is from July 19th of 2026, so within the last couple of weeks. Uh, Let me skim through this. So they started construction in 2022. They spent the first year prepping the site. Yeah, even though they had a groundbreaking ceremony in September of 2022, um, but they had to move around 1.7 million cubic yards of earth and aggregate, lime, and other materials, create utility trenches by excavation. They started pouring concrete in May of 2023.
My point
So
is,
I mean,
it's 2026.
yeah.
How long does it take to build a building?
Well, it does take a long time to build these plants because they have to be geologically isolated. That's part of the problem is that they literally have to dig these major holes all the way down to where there is bedrock and secure the plant on the bedrock. And then the plant has to be built like it's an earthquake facility so that it is, if there's any vibrations and things in the ground, it will not affect the plant in and of itself so that um, it is um, isolated from any tectonic or any events like that. That
And
being said,
this spot in Columbus is ideal for that.
yeah, in Licking County,
Uh-huh.
who knows?
Uh,
It doesn't, it's kind of funny. So this is really crap reporting because it doesn't say anything past 2023. So
I'm
they,
telling you, I don't think anything's going on. I don't. 2023 sounds about right to me.
yeah. So I'm looking at uh, in 2025. They paused the plant because it was CHIPS Act money.
Uh-huh.
Uh, they don't anticipate that plant opening until 2030, 2031 at this point, which is probably
It,
2 or 3 years in delay.
that
But they're still planning on building it. I mean,
I still say we're never going to see that.
yeah.
We're never going to see that.
No, that was a political stunt by our current governor.
Absolutely was.
Yep. So, but going back to this whole, RAM-aggedon thing driving up prices of frankly everything, from cars to cell phones to laptops to desktop computers to servers to your refrigerator to your watch. I mean, um, the basically like the CEO of SK Hynix has said that RAM capacity has been purchased through 2027, and I thought I saw one from, and so they're saying, and including Jensen Huang, are saying that this is going to continue through 2028. So we won't likely see the prices start to decline until after 2028. Now, that being said, TSMC, who typically makes chips, could take one of their fabs in Arizona and convert it to memory. But TSMC is building, fabs that are going to be opening within 2027, 2028, 2029. So it's possible that, some additional capacity could be added. And they're not the only ones building fabs. Because the problem is you can build all the processors you want. If you don't have the RAM to go with it, it's useless. you know, and it's not just RAM. RAM is just the tip of the iceberg because the people who make RAM also make SSDs, and so you're also seeing that fast storage capability, and because SSDs for the 10 years prior were coming down in price so much and having denser capacities than spinning disk, the spinning disk manufacturers started making fewer and fewer spinning disks, only disks in large capacities. So where these data centers aren't able to get the capacity in SSDs that they want, they're also not able to get the capacities in hard drive, or people are not able to get the capacities in hard drives because they're buying up all of the supply. And so even those things are going up in price 20% month after month. Which becomes, when you raise the price, when we talk about raising the price 20% in a year, that means, you could see a 1 to 2% price increase every month, because those price increases are exponential. I raise the price 2%, and then I raise it the next month at 2%. Well, I'm actually getting more in that 2% raise, because not only did I raise it 2%, but I'm also raising the 2% that I raised it previously 2%. And then the next month I'm raising 2%, 2%, 2%, And when we're doing that on a 20 cent percent per month perspective, we're seeing prices in the first half of this year, we've seen prices more than double, like 1.2 times the price of what it was in December of 2025. And here's the thing that I think is a kind of a dichotomy in all this. So all of this is driven by AI demand, which, right now there's all this investment by these, hyperscaler companies, and Nvidia and Meta and Google and Oracle and all this. And they're losing money. I mean, serious money month after month,
Well,
billions of dollars.
how soon does that bubble burst?
It's going to burst fairly soon. I think OpenAI, in my opinion, we're going to see the downfall of OpenAI first, which will then really hurt Microsoft, because they're heavily invested in OpenAI. And, but there's secretly, between the five top companies who've been building out data centers, Oracle, Google, uh, Nvidia, Microsoft, and OpenAI, there's like 1.5 or 1.65 trillion dollars in what they call hidden debt. And what it is it's not illegally reported, but it's debt that's held by wholly owned subsidiaries by these companies, so that they don't have to report that debt. It's a financial trick.
Hmm.
And I actually think it's probably greater than that, because that 1.65 trillion is based upon debt that's held by wholly owned subsidiaries directly owned by them. What are the wholly owned subsidiaries owned by their wholly owned subsidiaries got in debt? I have a feeling it's closer to 4 or 5 trillion. They One financial analyst said that we have not seen financial problem like this since Enron.
And for similar reasons.
Yes.
And what's going to be awful about that is, what happened in light of Enron,
Exactly.
Sarbanes-Oxley,
Exactly.
and
Which,
which to this day is a major contributor to the cost of doing business,
yes,
is
absolutely.
is compliance
Yep.
with that one piece of legislation,
Yep. Absolutely.
which will in turn continue to drive up the cost of the product.
Yeah. And it's funny, because the shortage has caused, like I said before, it has caused an industry response too. And so, like, Intel's wanting to get back in the memory game, because they see that there can be a profit, and frankly, if the spend continues, or even if companies collapse, the demand might still be higher than what Micron and SK Hynix and all these guys can produce. Um, so, Intel is looking, Lip Bhutan, the current CEO of Intel, is looking at it and going, this might be the time to re-enter the market in the memory biz. And then you have companies like Silicon Motion, who they're building a new SSD controller uh, for AI applications, because they're looking at, if we can make SSDs faster, which is a slightly is a very different technology. It's still memory, but it's a different memory technology than RAM. Maybe we can assuage some of these RAM issues with this other technology. You have Qualcomm and their Snapdragon platform so that they can bring back the $300 laptop, you know, based on ARM. They're not going to be hyper performant, but they're better than what Intel is providing in that same space. Um, and even Apple has, where they created the MacBook Neo, they've changed the industry and made it acceptable again. Now, their 8 gig laptop is incredibly well built, but also it's incredibly performant and capable. Um, which I think, in a Windows space, Windows keeps saying they're changing all this, and they've removed their recommendation for 32 gigs of RAM off their website. But Windows is still a fat pig. I have machines that have far more than 32 gigs of RAM in them, and they're under Windows. They're so not performant whatsoever.
Well, and I will say that maybe there's some good to come out of this, and Microsoft will have to knock back some of their nonsense too.
Yes, yes. I mean, you would hope. One of the good things about the Qualcomm Snapdragon C platform is it doesn't support Copilot Plus. That makes it, if it's $300 and it doesn't support Copilot Plus, that's a winner to me.
Sign me up.
You know, um, but it takes time for these things to develop. It's not like you're going to turn, like we were saying, that Intel fab in Columbus. It's not going to be like tomorrow or 6 months from now. It's going to be a couple years before a lot of this stuff is going to be able to.
And that assumes it's going to be built at all,
Yeah,
which I'm still negative Nelly on.
yeah. Well, and the other thing is everybody's trying to provide competition to Nvidia, who kind of, they're kind of the Microsoft of the market. And and even, like Huawei, which is a Chinese corporation, or in government backed, China government backed, they're trying to build, because of export restrictions, and the fact that China's like, if it ain't homegrown, we're not going to use it. So don't use it unless you have to. They're trying to build their own stuff, and they will, just like Nvidia is selling around the world, Huawei sells around the world, just not to the United States. Particularly the Middle East. There's a lot of Huawei gear in the Middle East. Um, you know, but at the end of the day, if they're building out all this AI infrastructure and nobody has equipment that can run the AI efficiently, it's a self-defeating cause, because, the AI companies, again, why are they doing this? To make money. And if you don't have customers,
Well, this is the part that I don't grasp. Obviously, they're doing it to make money,
yeah, but my personal opinion is, because
but
like, if you
but
watch,
that
if
trillion-dollar debt is there's going to be a reckoning.
yes, well, it's not just that. So even like, um, Gamers Nexus has a great video on this. I think they have a couple of videos on this on YouTube, but they talk about, because they're actually a gaming channel, and so they review PCs, and but this crisis is so bad that they've had to look outside and look at, like, to help explain why it's so bad. They've done a lot of really good research, and you know there's like this, what I would call a, besides this whole 1.65, and it's probably, like I said, it's probably greater than that. It's probably closer to 3 or 4 trillion in hidden debt, uh, for these companies. Uh, but there's also, you have like Nvidia giving a company like, I forget which scale they talk about it in, but there's like this circular economy going. So Nvidia invests in a hyperscaler, who then takes the money that they invested and buys Nvidia hardware. So it looks like they have this massive revenue coming in, and Nvidia is being altruistic by investing in the company, and then Nvidia buys back the capacity in cloud-based AI computing from the company that they invested in. It's funny money, man.
It really is Enron.
It is Enron.
This whole thing is gonna, there will be serious impact to the global economy when
Not
this
only that, but
goes.
when you look at the tech industry, I think there's going to be some things that are going to drastically change. And this is a little bit of prognostication on my part, but I actually think IBM and Apple will be largely isolated from this because while they have invested in AI, they have not been investing like billions and billions and billions of dollars into AI. As a matter of fact, in Apple's case, it's, the AI they've been investigating in mostly has been local AI on your Mac and your iPhone and your iPad and your Apple Watch, and so that it never leaves your computer. Um, but the like Oracle, they had that big layoff was so that they could shift the money in salaries. 165,000 employees shift salaries to building data or investing in data centers for their AI data center, cloud data centers.
Which they won't be able to run because they don't have enough RAM
Well, they
and all
won't
that
have
other stuff. And
customers,
they won't have customers. They want none of
and
that. None of that makes sense.
no, and they're bleeding money month to month.
None of
Uh,
that makes sense.
you know, Nvidia is invested in OpenAI. OpenAI is about to go out of business. They've never made a profit. Um, and the funny thing is like the stock market has been. I seriously think there's some serious manipulation going on in the stock market because these AI companies, their stocks have not fallen a whole lot. Based upon the announcements that they've got all of this debt. Now, is that because the people who are investing in them are they're going to be the cause? You know, they bought low enough that they can ride this out and see how high it gets, and then they just dump it all, and then you know,
Well, that's the
and so it's a big pump and dump scheme.
which, let's face facts, that's the whole basis of venture capitalism.
Yes,
And I would,
but I also think Microsoft, they've been spending all their time on AI and not improving their products, and customers are leaving them, so they're not making money on their traditional products, and they're not making money. I mean, we've seen the financial results. Their investment in AI is not paying off. And they're also tied directly to OpenAI. If OpenAI collapses, Microsoft, I don't know that Microsoft will go away completely, but I think Microsoft will be a shell of itself, you know?
I can only, and think back to my very first appearance on this podcast and what a Microsoft fanboy I was back in the day. So
Yeah.
this coming from me is hilarious. But I think we could do without Microsoft. I really do. I think we could do
I
without
yeah.
Microsoft.
But it from an economic standpoint, that could be devastating, because the repercussions will be worldwide. And that's just on the tech side. Not to mention, all these companies on the commercial side who've spent millions, if not billions of dollars investing in AI, um, to supposedly help their business, and they're not, and it's not that AI can't help your business, but you got to have use cases. You got to have, and one of the things that's irritated me about the federal government is a lot of my federal government customers that I consult for, they have a mandate. It used to be cloud first. We need to use the cloud, and so they started. It didn't have a use case for moving to the cloud, but we got to use the cloud because the cloud is the cloud. It's the word of the day. And so they moved, workloads and stuff to the cloud, and then they got their first bill, and they said, no, move it back. It's too expensive. Move it back. Um, And we have the same thing going on. I went to a one customer and I'm talking to the CIO and the chief data officer. And I said, so what do you want to do with AI? What are you, let's pick a couple of use cases and then figure out, how to get from A to B. And and he goes, well, what kind of things can we do with AI? And then I'm like, now you got to remember a government CIO is not like they're a bureaucrat. They're not an actual tech person. And I said, well, you could do this and you could do this and you could do this. And he turns around and says, yes, that's not picking a use case for two. I want AI,
Yeah. Well, it
And also the
and
funny
that's
thing
why
is
I think it's a bubble that's gonna burst
oh, it
because
is going to
I
be a
think
bubble that's going to burst. Well, the other thing so, the funny thing is AI, one, it should not, I've argued this for a long time, should not be called artificial intelligence.
yeah.
It should be called automation intelligence because really, even LLMs,
No, I don't think
uh,
it should be intelligence at all.
but
Just automation.
yeah, it should be. Well, it's to automate things. It's to help you get jobs done, you know, uh, either without human intervention, but it's a, you can't get to the thing that everybody doesn't realize is you cannot get to AI without data science. And the data science workflow tells you that you have to clean your data up. And usually, what we mean by cleaning your data up is you need to remove all human influence from the data because you have somebody who's editing a spreadsheet and that's part of your major data package. By hand, it's too prone to errors. And we know how, I mean, look how easy it is to poison an AI to make it not do what you want it to do. And, or to do,
Things it wasn't intended
tend
to
to
do.
do. Exactly. And don't get me wrong, I use AI, and I help customers design realistic goals to use AI for and build it out. But this whole thing is it's very it, it, it feels, having lived through Enron, for us, I mean, Enron, yeah, it was a huge issue from a regulatory standpoint, but it didn't really hurt the rest of America too bad from a financial standpoint. It really hurt California because that's where it was all centered at.
Yeah.
Um, this has the potential to hurt everybody everywhere, uh,
Which is why
which is more to me like the Great Depression.
the reason I struggle with it and why we keep going back to this Enron thing is that like our corporate leadership class is still trying to get away with it.
Yeah. Well, it's just they found a new loophole. It's what they found. This whole
Well, and
this whole like
typically,
the 1.65 trillion that they found in the top 5 AI companies as that they're calling hidden debt. It's not misreported. They're allowed to report their everything the way they are. But it's just some financial analysts who know that this is a workaround dug down and found all of this. So this is well, you didn't say I couldn't do that this way. It's not illegal, so we're going to do it.
see, this is where I come back and I will say, well, you have a responsibility to your shareholders to not lie to them about how
Yeah.
much this is actually costing.
Yes.
And that is where I'm like, you haven't learned the lesson.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well, part of the thing is it's become a hype machine. Like they talk about Sam Altman all the time. I've read a whole bunch of articles about you know how a lot of people feel he's dishonest, both within OpenAI and people who've invested in OpenAI and people who've divested themselves of OpenAI, or people who have crossed paths with OpenAI, in business dealings and stuff. And it's because those type of people are hype machines, and they get off on being hype machines. And if you look at his compensation package, he's probably making enough that he's comfortable being a hype machine, and he's not really being the responsible CIO he should be. It would not surprise me if some of these companies, the leadership changes quickly, and and they start divesting themselves of assets and stuff.
Human or otherwise.
Yes,
Yeah. No,
it's
that's
still a crash no matter what happens.
the only thing you can hope for is that there will be a next generation of company willing to innovate and do it the right way. That's a stretch, and it's a lot of wishful thinking, but that's really the only way to mitigate that particular risk.
Yeah, absolutely. So the AI boom has destroyed, or really, the, my notes say broke, but the reality it is it's kind of obliterated the the personal technology market right now from a price perspective, and everybody's racing for profit that most of them are unlikely to ever see. And the ones who aren't are trying to build around it. So let us know what you think. Are we full of shit? Are we, is there some major thing we're not aware of or not seeing in our analysis of the market?
Should ask AI, what are we missing here?
I'd ask Claude. It's pretty good about that stuff. I don't have access to the Mythos model, which would actually tell me the truth. Um, or it would escape and try to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
So send us some feedback to GizmoSapiens@gmail.com. That's GizmoSapiens@gmail.com. Or post a comment on episode 283 on our website at www.gizmosapiens.com. And we'll see you on the digital flip side.
You've been listening to Gizmo Sapiens, a technology and entertainment podcast. You can reach us at our email address at gizmosapiens@gmail.com. That's GizmoSapiens@gmail.com. We'd really love to hear from you, and we'll see you next week from the Digital Flipside.